¿Qué pasa, YouTube? 6-Foot Hacks here. Half for guys today, week 12 of the CCL D League. Now, normally, as you guys know, I do a little team building thing before I get into the actual battle. But that's not going to happen this time, just because we are facing the current #1 person in the CCL D League who is ahead of us by like 3 points. So, if we can win this match, then we can get into first place, and neither of us really got to reveal all of our sets in this matchup. So he wants to keep his stuff secret, I want to keep my stuff a little bit secret too, because like I said, I didn't really get to use everything, and this is, I guess you could say, a very interesting battle, to say the least. Of course, if you do enjoy the video, make sure to hammer that like button down below, guys. Really do appreciate all the support on the CCL D League matches. I think we only have a couple weeks left, so just a couple more Mondays, and then I'll be uploading something differently along with FFAs for Mondays. But if you look at his team, he more or less brought everything I was expecting. Like, Mantine was kind of a toss-up, because I thought that maybe he would bring Roserade, but I can see why he wouldn't bring Roserade. He also probably thought I would bring Crobat because of some moves he has on his Mons and items, actually. But more or less, he did bring everything I was expecting. Like, Conkeldurr has a really good matchup. Weavile was coming just because Weavile is a fucking Dawn. Like, Weavile also has a really good matchup in this game. Actually, Weavile is probably the biggest threat on his team. Jirachi, like, I still haven't really figured out how to prepare for Jirachi, just because it can literally run anything. It can be physical, special, mixed, a wall breaker, setup, support. Like, it's crazy. Like, I definitely want to use Jirachi sometime in the future for a draft format. Garchomp, I'm expecting it to be maybe like Swords Dance with rocks, maybe, or no Swords Dance, just like Life Orb for attacks. Maybe Scarfed. That's really it. Like, I don't expect it to be like Bandit. He can't be Z-move. He could be like Yachiberry maybe, or like Lumberry SD, so I could see that. Conkeldurr, I'm expecting it to be Assault Vest. Like, I'm 90% sure it's going to be Assault Vested. If it's Bulk Up, it could maybe be annoying, but I should be able to deal with that accordingly. Like, I'm really not too concerned about Conkeldurr being a Bulk Up set. And then if it's Choice Banded, that's actually going to be a little bit annoying. But as long as I have Sableye, then Sableye should be able to comfortably switch into that Sylveon. I'm expecting it to potentially be Specs or be like Pixie Plate, because if he locks himself into Psyshock, possibly predicting my Snorlax or Scolipede, I just get a free switch into my Sableye, and then from there I can maybe Will-O-Wisp something, or recover off damage, or go for an offensive move. And then Mantine most definitely is going to be like max defense and max HP, maybe some speed, maybe some special attack, but I'm honestly not even worried about Mantine, just because all I need to do is just weaken it, and then from there on it's not going to be an issue. Anyways, my Mamoswine is a humongous threat to him, although even though I double checked the team before our battle, I still had the wrong item on Mamoswine. Luckily, it doesn't even matter at all in this match, but it was just still kind of funny. And then everything else is pretty much fine. Like I said, I don't really want to reveal too much of the set, so let's just go ahead and get this match. So of course OBS decides to be a pain, so I have to re-narrate this little kind of lengthy battle, but I mean, it's fun, it's not a big deal. So he's going to be leading off with Weavile, as I'm going to be leading off with Sableye. I knew Sableye was probably going to be my best lead going into this match, because I was 99% sure he wasn't going to lead Sylveon, just because I could have led Scolipede, or I could have led Mamoswine, or even Cobalion, honestly. And Weavile or Garchomp or Jirachi were the 3 main leads I was expecting him to want to lead with, as I'm in a pretty good spot. I can honestly just go straight for the Will-O-Wisp. Now, yes, Prankster has been nerfed, so I wouldn't have got a priority Will-O-Wisp off on Weavile, but it doesn't matter, just because I still would have lived any hit that he was, even if he was Choice Banded. And if he was banded, I could have then just gone for Recover, as he got burned. So I was pretty positive he wouldn't stay in, or he would just switch out into the Sylveon here, as I am able to burn the incoming Sylveon. This is really nice, because now I can get this residual damage. And expecting him to be a specially offensive Sylveon, I actually switched into my AV Tangrowth, just to gauge to see how much damage he would be doing with Hyper Voice if he was a spec set. Also, he could have maybe gone for the Psyshock, predicting me to bring in Scolipede or my Snorlax. So either way, Tangrowth I think was definitely my best play, as he actually pulls a switch out into his Jirachi, which honestly is really good for me, because I'm in a really good spot still. Like, I can definitely just go for the knockoff and lose absolutely nothing in doing so. I'm going to get rid of the item from this Jirachi, or I'm going to get rid of lefties on the Sylveon or Mantine or AV from Conkeldurr or possible Choice Band, or leftovers if it's carrying that, get a little bit of chip damage on Weavile, and get rid of whatever item the Garchomp is holding. But he's actually going to turn out to have the trick. Now, because Kyle is a really good draft format player, I was thinking that maybe this Jirachi wasn't going to be running Jolly max speed or running max speed in general. So I'm just going to stay in here and honestly just go for the knockoff again, because I really lose nothing in doing so. Like, even if he stayed in and went for the Stealth Rocks, I can still chip down Jirachi, or as you can see here, I can knock off a Kibaya Berry, I think it's how you pronounce it. It weakens the power of a super effective poison type move, which means this is going to be really good for my Scolipede later in the match, because I forget if I mentioned this in team preview, but my thought process going into this battle was, if I can just weaken everything and put it in a pretty like medium to high range of HP, like a medium to low range of HP, then my Scolipede can basically just sweep through his entire team late game. And I don't have a Z move this time, so yeah. As he does bring in the Sylveon, I'm just going to make the switch directly into my Snorlax here. Scouting got to see what he wanted to do, expecting him to either go for the Heal Bell or go for the Wish. As he does go for the Wish, he's going to pass off the Wish to the Conkeldurr, which I was fine with. Not going to lie, I was kind of hoping that maybe I could have got the Paralysis here, because that would have been very helpful against this Conkeldurr, but he most likely does still have Heal Bell on Sylveon, except that he doesn't have Heal Bell because it reveals to be Flame Orb Conkeldurr. Now, anytime you see a Guts Pokemon with a Pokemon that could potentially have Heal Bell, or what's the other move, Aromatherapy, they don't typically carry it, because why would you want to get rid of the Status Orb on your Pokemon if it's supposed to have the orb activated, if you get what I'm trying to say? So at this point, I'm not entirely sure, but I'm pretty sure that he doesn't have Heal Bell on Sylveon, and that really comes to play a role throughout this battle. As I make the save switch into my Sableye, he does make the good play there and going for the knockoff, predicting me to make that play, or I also could have brought in my Scolipede. Either way though, I will be able to just safely stay in here and go for the recover. Scouting got to see what his coverage moves are to hit me with. So he's got Knockoff, Ice Punch, most likely Mach Punch, and then either Hammer Arm or Drain Punch, as I will be able to just go for another recover here. He is going to make the switch into his Sylveon, which even though he could Heal Bell here, I don't want to still take a Hyper Voice, so I'm just going to make the save switch into my Snorlax as he just goes for the Wish. He can definitely just pass the switch off to his Conkeldurr, but he makes I really don't think this was a good play. I honestly think this was a really bad play on his part, just because he could have brought Conkeldurr back in and got me in a scenario where it was just going to be Sableye against Conkeldurr again, and then from there he could have maybe pivoted around or wished up his Sylveon back up to full HP on my forced switch out. And then Conkeldurr, like I said, is a huge issue in this matchup in general, but because I know it's not bulk up and I know it's not Assault Vest, it's not as scary, just because Sableye can still comfortably switch directly into Conkeldurr pretty much 9 times out of 10, unless he like crits me or freezes me with the Ice Punch. So I do get a little lucky here, and I get the Paralysis with Body Slam, which it is 30%, the same amount as Scald. But this Paralysis is actually pretty huge, because this kind of makes Garchomp not as big of an issue. I still don't know what set he is. I don't know if he's offensive or defensive or what his coverage moves are, so I'm going to make a pretty aggressive switch into my Mamoswine, thinking that maybe he would switch out into his Jirachi or either into his Sylveon. Mainly Sylveon, but even if he stayed in, I should still be able to live any hit, plus there's the possibility that he's just going to go for the Stealth Rocks. But he stayed in, and I could have had the Ice Punch on my Snorlax, so I think that was also pretty questionable for him to have stayed in there. But he does unfortunately get fully paralyzed, which means he doesn't get any damage off on me, or he doesn't get up rocks, and at the same time, I don't know what set he is, and I'm pretty sure he's going to be forced out here, as he does bring in the Jirachi. I was very close to going for the Earthquake, but on the off chance that he did want to bring in Mantine, I just wanted to go straight for my Stealth Rocks, because the following turn, I could have gone for Knockoff or switched out. As he does bring in Jirachi, obviously I don't want to stay in, so I'm going to be forced out into my Tangrowth, as he does end up going for the U-turn. That's fine by me, because as you see here, he's going to bring in the Mantine. And I'm pretty sure that Mantine is actually faster than Tangrowth, but because he tricked the Choice Scarf to me, I'm actually faster than him, and I'm able to get rid of his leftovers. Now, getting rid of leftovers on Mantine is really huge, just for the fact that if I'm able to get rocks up again, I'm going to be able to pressure this Mantine hopefully enough to the point where he's not going to be able to go for the Defog, or he's going to most likely want to go for the Roost. And that's going to be really good for me, because having rocks up in general in this matchup is really huge. So he is going to end up going for the defog here, which is fine by me. He is then just going to stay in here. I switched into my Snorlax thinking he would go for the Air Slash, but he's going to go for the Scald, trying to burn me, which, I mean, you can't be upset at him for because I did paralyze his Garchomp. But even if he had burned me, I don't think that would have been too big of an issue. Although it would have made Snorlax a little bit less useful, I still think I could have got some use out of it by just spamming Body Slam. So I make a really, really bad play here. And the more I think about it, I honestly had no reason to go for the Curse. I could have definitely just gone for another Body Slam and chipped down this Conkeldurr, which would have been really good because it would have been in range of where I then could have knocked it out with my Cobalion, my Mamoswine if I lived the Mach Punch, or knocked it out with my Scolipede. But instead I go for the Curse, and this is really bad because he's going to be doing too much damage with Drain Punch, and he's going to knock me out if he has Hammer Arm, and then my Body Slam is only doing about 40-something%. I still have use for my Snorlax because if he loses Conkeldurr, then my Snorlax could potentially sweep him late game if he doesn't burn me. Or if he doesn't have Haze on the Mantine, which I'm pretty sure he may have Haze, just in case I decided to bring Reuniclus, which I absolutely love to bring Reuniclus, obviously. And I'm just going to make the save switch into my Sableye. I was 99% sure he would go for the Hammer Arm or the Drain Punch, and now that I know he's got Drain Punch, that means he doesn't have Hammer Arm, which means later in this match, if I'm able to get up more than one Curse, I can stay in against the Conkeldurr and maybe knock it out with a +2 Body Slam. As he makes the safe switch into the Garchomp, I do pull a double switch into my Cobalion, predicting him to want to bring in the Sylveon, and I'm in a pretty tough spot here. So I'm going to be forced to switch out. In hindsight, I could have probably brought in Tangrowth here. Like, bringing in Meltzer was a really questionable play in my opinion. Like, even if he had Fire Blast or Fire Fang, Tangrowth could have lived one either way. So, yeah, I think just bringing in Mamoswine here was really bad on my part. My thought process was, I really want Rocks Up. I need Rocks Up. If I get Rocks Up, with Mantine being at 35% HP, he's only going to be at about, like, 15% after he switches in one more time, which means if I can keep up offensive pressure, Mantine's not going to defog. And like I said, I really need Rocks Up in this matchup just because they are very, very handy to pressure his whole team and put it in range of where I can either sweep with Scolipede, maybe Cobalion, or even Snorlax if I'm able to get rid of Conkeldurr. So he does go for the Earthquake, does 88% to me. Now I am running a bit of HP investment on this Mamoswine, and after running the calc, it turns out that he's actually Choice Band-Aid Garchomp, which honestly, I was not expecting. Like, I really did not think he would be Choice Banded. But this is fine because if he really wants to stay in here, I'm just going to get on my Stealth Rocks. Like, I really didn't mind if he wanted to try and knock out my Mamoswine, but there was a good possibility he was going to switch out into his Jirachi or into his Mantine. And expecting him to just want to go for the Iron Head or the U-turn, I'm going to make the switch into my Cobalion here. Very positive he wouldn't try and Body Slam or go for a Thunder Wave. Plus, I still have use for my Mamoswine in this matchup to potentially Ice Shard and get off chip damage on Weavile, or knock out Mantine, or knock out this Garchomp as he brings in the Garchomp. Again, I'm very positive he's Choice Banded after running the calc, so I can get a free and safe switch into my Tangrowth. If he went for the Dragon Claw, I just get a free switch into my Cobalion, which just clicks Close Combat on his entire team now that Mantine has been severely weakened. So I'm in a pretty good spot of where I can either go for the Poison Jab or go for the knockoff. And even though I am locked into whatever move I go for, he can then capitalize on that move. It still wouldn't be entirely too bad for me. So I still found it a little bit funny that even though he tricked off my Tangrowth, Tangrowth was still very, very helpful to me in this game. And I make the worst decision of the two, and I go for the Poison Jab instead of going for the knockoff because I thought he would try to bring in Sylveon, which I can definitely 2 a KO after rocks and burn damage and the first Poison Jab. So I thought he would bring in Jirachi here, but he actually ends up bringing in Weavile, which I'm not really sure why he brought in Weavile. Like, I honestly think that Jirachi just would have been his better switching because he could have just gone for Iron Head. I'm guessing maybe he didn't do it because he thought I would predict him to go for the U-turn, and then I could have just Poison Jab whatever he U-turned into, and then at that point he could have potentially sacked off the Sylveon, or I just could have got off a little bit of chip damage on the Garchomp, which any bit of damage on Garchomp is really, really good for me in this matchup. So I do bring in my Sableye on the low kick. I didn't predict low kick, but I was pretty sure I could live any move he wanted to go for. As he then goes for the Icicle Crash, he turns out to not be Life Orb. That damage is not Icicle Plate damage, so he could either be Black Glasses or, for some reason, Expert Belts. I'm not really sure what item at this point he was carrying. He told me after the match he was Focus Sashed. But at this point in the match, I wasn't sure what item he was carrying. Obviously, he can't have a Z move because they are banned in the CCL D League. So either way, I can just go for the recover here and basically recover up enough to where he's either going to miss Icicle Crash or he's going to get frustrated and switch out. And he does predict me to just go for another recover here as he safely switches into a Sylveon, which is getting really worn down. I honestly don't think I've got off one hit on the Sylveon, and it's already below 50%, which is a little bit funny. As I'm going to make the hard switch into my Scolipede, he does end up going for the Wish. This is fine by me because I'm in a scenario of where I can either maybe try and hazard stack or try and go for an aggressive offensive move, and I really did not want him to get this Wish off to his Jirachi, because having Jirachi at this low amount of HP is really good for me in this game. So I'm just going to make the aggressive play and go for the Mega Horn. As he switches into the Garchomp, I unfortunately get a crit, and he most likely would have been at around like 85 or 90% HP instead of being at 60%. I'm not sure how much that really ends up mattering in the long run of the battle, but I'm just going to stay in here and go for the Protect. Scouting got to see what he wants to lock himself into. He does choose to lock himself into the Dragon Claw. That's fine by me because I do have a perfect switch into this in my Cavalion. And I really wish I had Baton Pass because I could have Baton Passed off the +2 speed into my Cavalion. Either way, much like earlier, I just click Close Combat. Depending on Conkeldur's EV spread, I get off about 40 to like 60%. And with rocks and burn damage, he's going to be at I want to say roughly around like 10 to 20% HP after that. And then if I can keep up offensive pressure, he's not going to be able to pass off a Wish to Conkeldurr, which is really good. He brings in Sylveon, I then just Iron Head it. He brings in Jirachi, I 2 KO him with Close Combat. He leaves in his Choice Banded Garchomp, I just 2 KO him. And then he's going to be able to bring in Weavile, which just dies to the Close Combat. So he does decide to leave in Garchomp. Unfortunately, he gets fully paralyzed, which he said that him getting off the Dragon Claw damage would have been nice. And I guess that would have put me in range of where Mach Punch could have knocked me out, or maybe the Ice Shard would have knocked me out. I still would have lived, obviously, and then still been in a position of where I either knock out Garchomp or I knock out whatever he switches in, or just get off huge damage on this Conkeldurr. And then he decides to hard switch right into Conkeldurr, and I crit him. This crit definitely mattered. I didn't want this crit. I didn't want any of this hacks. And this crit really did matter because obviously I no longer have to deal with Conkeldurr. And now this is one less thing I have to worry about. So he's going to bring in the Weavile. And I can just stay in here and go for the Close Combat if I really wanted to. Or I'm just going to switch out into my Mamoswine as Death Fodder. This was really bad. There was no reason for me to have switched in my Mamoswine when I could have just switched into my Sableye. Sableye is definitely my perfect switch in to a non-Choice Banded or non-Life Forward Weavile. And instead, I for some reason thought sacking off Mamoswine was good. Luckily though, he switched out, which means I can switch out myself into my Tangrowth as he's going to try and Iron Head flinch me down. Unfortunately, I get another crit, and this crit definitely mattered. Even if he was like max HP, unless I had got absolute maximum damage, there was no way Earthquake was going to knock him out. So I could have 2 KO'd him with Earthquake if he didn't flinch me, or I guess I could have then just switched out depending on how things went. But just, yeah, I get another crit, and I'm up 6-3 at this point, and honestly, there's no way that Kyle's going to win this battle at this point. Like, because of all the hacks and how things happened, I am going to end up winning this battle. Now, I didn't want this hacks, I didn't ask for it, and it really sucks that this battle went down like this because I really did want a good game against Kyle. I know Kyle's a very good player, but there is a good possibility that we're going to end up facing him in playoffs. So if we have a rematch, hopefully that battle will be a lot better than what this battle was. So just, yeah, we win 6-0 and we basically steal the first place spot in the CCL D League, and then next week we face the third place person, which is the Based Ellie. Some of you guys may know who she is. She's been around the community for a while now, but we face her next week, and I think she's our last opponent before playoffs. So depending on how things go, we may be able to enter playoffs as number 1, so that would be pretty awesome. If not, then hey, either way, we're making playoffs for sure, and then hopefully we can win it all. So Yeah, I'm sorry, Kyle. I don't want to say good game, obviously, because I just honestly hacked them out. But I don't know. Like, at the same time, like, I guess the paralysis on Garchomp was pretty huge. But, I mean, Body Slam has a 30% to paralyze. So if I had still got the paralysis on Garchomp and I didn't get any of the other hacks, I could have still won this match. Especially because keeping up Stealth Rocks were really huge in this battle. But if I didn't paralyze Garchomp, then I guess things may have gone differently. I don't know. You can theory him on all you want, guys. But just, yeah, either way, check out Kyle. His channel link and stuff is down below. So with that being said, guys, I will see you all tomorrow. So later, everybody.
Cause my brain and heart are both tied in the knot, and this hinders me from crying a lot. This causing me to show no emotion. But when I said I cared, I wasn't joking. But I guess it's too late for me to become broken. For now, I'm living with no more pain, tears, or hoping. I'm just coasting. Yeah, I said I'm coasting. No more pain, tears, and hoping. For real.